Hello, and thank you for coming on to a new episode of Declassified. My name is Dawn Pierce, and I wanted to let you know today's guest is Jeffrey Zell, and he is with the Sumter School Board. He is a trustee in its Section 8 or District 8. How do you say that?
It's Area 8.
Area 8, okay.
Same thing, but
I apologize. I just wanted to represent you correctly. So today we're having him on, and I want to go into a little bit about he is one of the new members that is actually on and the role that he will be playing in the Sumter schools. So I want you to thank you for tuning in and just welcome you on. Jeff, can you tell me a little bit about what made you run for this position?
Okay, well, just a little backstory kind of will tell you about myself, and then what prompted me, compelled me to run is I come from a very broken home. My childhood was dysfunctional, drugs, promiscuity, generational poverty, generational dysfunction, a lot of mental health issues, things like that. And I have a twin brother, and so and I mean that, I say that because his name is Patrick. So I invoke his name because truly God allowed me to have someone in my life that would help me get out of that situation, that station. And a lot of folks don't have that. And so, in spite of our upbringing and the problems we faced, we got out of it. By the grace of God and a strong set of values. And so I joined the Air Force about 20 years ago. I just retired, and I felt like I've seen real abject poverty in the States and overseas, and I realized there's a lot of similarities between poverty, and this isn't racial. This isn't gender. Like, poverty doesn't know race. Poverty doesn't know gender. Poverty doesn't know sexuality. Poverty is probably one of the most profound elements in cyclic and generational dysfunction and dysfunction and detriment. I felt like I've experienced that in such a profound way in my life growing up, and it was one of those tests I believe God put me through, and He allowed me to walk through that fire and get on the other side. And now I feel like I can give back, and I offer a very, a very clear alternative to what the status quo is. I don't have an education background. I don't have, a lot of the corporate business background. Majority of my adult working life has been in the military. So that being said, I brought, which I felt like, and when I was a child, mostly what I was looking for is structure and guidance and some way out. And I think if I were to ask any kid or any, most young children, teenage or whatever in South Carolina that live those issues every day, I could ask them, what do you want? And they would tell me probably the same thing. So I feel like I can relate to that probably more so than the average person. And I feel like I owe it to the community. I've enjoyed such success through, from where I've come to where I'm at and where I think we're going. And I just feel the best use of my abilities, my traits, my passion is to help wherever I can in the biggest and boldest way I can. And the school district really just felt like it was ground zero to where we need to focus our efforts. So, in a long way, sorry, that's
that's good. Because a lot of people,
God.
Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And, a lot of people don't know, and, it's not like I put it out there, but I came from an abusive background, and I hate hearing when people say, I've been through this, I've been through that, and that's why I'm stuck here. I can't do anything. And I don't think anybody is stuck. I think that you kind of create your own vision.
That's right.
I knew what I wanted to do when I became a mother. I knew what I wasn't going to do. I knew how I was going to treat my kids, what I wanted for them, and I was going to be their voice.
That's right.
I didn't have a voice when I was a child, and a lot of kids don't. And so, I think that's where, like, a lot of us have a story.
Sure.
We do the things we do because we have a story to tell and a reason for doing it. And not everybody sees that view. And I'm glad that you
That's
brought that
right.
up. Now, a lot of kids from Sumter, the schools, I mean, they get a bad rap. And
Oh yeah. Sure.
every school has their issues. I mean, I think we hear a lot about Lexington, Lexington one, Richland
Richland
County.
too.
Yeah, Richland
Oh
too.
yeah.
But we don't hear much about Sumter unless it's
Right.
something completely bad and on the news or whatever. And so a lot of the schools' problems that they're having statewide, worldwide, has to do with discipline and has to do with the communication. We keep hearing the buzzword transparency,
That's right.
but I
Oh
don't
yeah.
feel that parents are really getting that. The ones that are asking for it are not getting it. And I
That's
think other
correct.
parents are sitting back and they're not,
Sure.
they think the school's doing what they should do and that's it.
That's
But I
right.
wanted to talk to you about a little bit about the bullying issues. I mean, there's bullying issues everywhere. But what is your plan now, sitting here inside the school? What would be something you would propose to, to cut down the bullying? Because, the
Sure.
tattletale and doesn't help. So what would you
Okay.
suggest?
Well, let me back up a little bit in your statement, and then I'll answer the question, because I think that you first have to define, and this is where I believe that a level of objectivity and a real healthy level of skepticism for all things government, for all things power structure, whether it be, honestly, and I mean this to the core of me, the left has gotten something right, and I'll say this: is they define everything by a power structure, and what they want to do is essentially tear down the current power structure and replace it with a different power structure, which likely is going to be just as abusive, right? And so I don't think replacing, the song by The Who, I Won't Get Fooled Again, I think that's what it's called. They talked about, the old boss is like the new boss. Well, that's part of the problem is, we look at, we don't really dissect, because it's, and like we were talking about yesterday, we don't really get down to the weeds where we say, okay, what is the design and purpose and function of a bureaucracy? And it's really comes down to this, whether it be schools, military, police force, academia, you name it, whatever it is, it's especially taxpayer funded institutions. They're designed to serve and provide value to the community. That's it. And if they don't do that, and many don't, because the very nature, and our founding fathers say this, and I'll get to the point here in a second, but our founding fathers in the Federalist Papers, particularly my favorite, Federalist 51, talked about the separation of authority, separation of powers. What they knew was that centralized power, whatever euphemism you want to use, centralized power, government, and institution, they're all, at some point they become so entrenched, and I guess walls are built, in such a way where they stop, in my opinion. And you can look at any individual institution or bureaucracy and look at and see. You ask one simple question: are they providing value to the citizen? And it's largely, you can say, no, they're not. They may, in some small ways, but the overarching, the point is that bureaucracy becomes self-serving, right? And they do. So it becomes a blob, if you will, right, of consolidated power. And, like James Madison said many times over, that consolidated power is antithetical to your liberties, right? And so whether it be a faction, a group, a political party, whether it be appointed or elected, eventually the institution will work against the sovereignty of the nation and will work on behalf of its own self. That being said, and now I answer the question. That was a very long.
That's okay. That's okay. Sometimes
I just want you to know where my heart is, where I come from. To answer the question, when we look at, we have a lot of national level issues that are seeping into the locality, and not to make this a political issue, but people say, our race was nonpartisan. And so people say, oh, you should keep politics out of it. Yeah, I would love to. Problem is, your side got to keep out of the politics as well.
Right.
And the problem has been the last 40 years, politics have been seeping into our institution. Academia is absolutely on the very forefront of that. And again, now I believe academia, whether it be K through 12 or, and this isn't to impugn, I want to clear this up. This is not to impugn anyone's character. There are great educators. There are great students. There's great things happening in public schools. Not enough of it. And what we're doing is, and this kind of alludes into my answer, or leads me into my answer, is that some of the plans I see right now, to take away some of the really big hitter, big national stories that gets everybody's hair on fire and all that. Yes, they're important. Yes, we need to get to them and put preventative measures in place. Like I said yesterday with the CRT, I don't agree with CRT. I think that history should be taught in a neutral way, right? Not to demonize one or promote another. I don't think don't think that that's good for the longevity of a nation. But when you look down at the K through 12 level in the kind of rural schools, the smaller school districts, there are elements of that, sure, right? Because we all have TVs and we all have phones, we're all reading this stuff, right? We're consumers of propaganda from the national media, whether we like it or not. We can't escape it fully. It is happening here. So what I want to do is look at the problems that persist in the school district. And I'm sure you heard the term corridor shame, right? Okay. And so, the Midlands, and I don't want to say that because that implies everything is bad, and it's not, right? There are some big issues, and discipline is one, I would say probably predominantly the problem, because that issue covers, we know that that's why, and there's studies to prove this, and there's, a lot of anecdotal evidence that I have just simply knocking on doors and talking with teachers, grandmas, grandpas, students themselves. Discipline is a large reason why teachers are leaving the district and taking pay cuts in benefits, and moving into private schools, or just retiring early, moving into adjacent schools that have, better climate type of situation. And so if we get at discipline, the process in which, and the fair administration of discipline, and really, if you look at our policy in Sumter County, I think it's been going the right direction. And this is to give some credit to the previous board, is I believe that they understood this, but did they do enough? That's the question. Probably not, right? And that's why we were elected to go in, kind of coming in hot and making the changes. That being said, is discipline currently, depends on what school district you look at, is almost enabling bad behavior within the classroom. And so, because our policies are kind of general, they, in some instances, they're pretty specific about, you can't be a violent criminal and threaten, make threats of violence and death and things like that. That's a one strike you're out kind of thing, and it should be.
Right.
But what we're doing is, what leads to that kind of anger and that climate of toxicity and the lack of safety, the lack of sense of safety in the classroom, is that literally, and I've heard this a whole lot of times, is that teachers don't feel safe to administer discipline.
You don't
at all.
No.
And largely because they don't feel that the administration has their back.
Right. They don't back them up. Yeah.
Correct. And this is where I think that kind of the national politics in that way, and some folks who don't share my political perspective might disagree with me, is I do believe when you talk about politics, that's one of those political issues and kind of nuances that has embedded itself into public schools, right? Is that, you see it in the district attorneys in the large cities who don't prosecute crimes. They don't, this, that, and the other. So what they do is they release violent offenders back on the streets. And I'm not saying it's to that degree in the public schools by any means. I'm not implying that, but I am saying the same sentiment, the same way of viewing it does. I come from a military background, and prior to that, I had no structure in my life, and I should have been in prison, should have been dead, should have been on a drug addiction, whatever it is, right? That was my life, my trajectory. And it was the very structure of discipline and the climate of discipline in the military that gave me this ability to be so clear-eyed when I go and look at an issue. I look at the problems that persist in these schools. So to answer the question clearly and without saying any more, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the board here, but I have talked to them many times throughout the campaign and offline, is discipline is a very, very known issue. And so we know when we move those big rocks that some of those smaller issues may relieve some of the pressure on the teacher shortages, the bullying, and so what we're looking at is as a board member alone, and I can't speak for the others, but I'm already looking at our board policy and our matrices of discipline and codes of conduct and things like that, and I'm comparing them to what we see in highly functioning school boards. Fort Mill, to be honest, hats off to them. And I know it's a different element, different fees, different tax base. I understand it. It's unique in its own way. We have our intricacies as well. But the very foundation of these things is we got to look at the policy, and then we have to enforce the policy. And I think that's what the community at large has told me, and I know some other members, is that we just can't continue to keep doing what we're doing, or we're going to lose our kids.
That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, but it's not going to happen. I think, with you having 7 new members on your board, I think that's awesome, because it's like wiping the slate kind of clean and getting a brand new start for everybody, and taking the knowledge of the other 2 that have been there and kind of incorporating it to work together. I'm just hoping that everybody can pull it together and see the same vision. But my wonder is with parents, there's parents that think little Johnny is an angel, or they're not going to put that discipline in place with their kids. Just an example is one girl that I've known, she has problems at home, and she was in school and she was causing problems, and she was fighting other kids. After, I think it was like maybe the 6th incident, the child was moved to an alternative school. So she's over there and she's still not doing what she's supposed to do. DSS is involved in everything, but DSS is not doing anything. They know what the family situation is. They know the dynamics of the family. Nothing's being moved. So therefore, I see her and I hate saying it, when she turns 18, she's going to be a problem to the law, because the law gives them the smack on the hand and sends them back and says, hey, there's nothing we can do because you're under the age of 18. So where do we start? I mean, if the parents aren't backing the school, and I think a lot of the parents don't trust the schools right now, and so
for good reason,
how do we get everybody on board? Like, what would be a good plan to say, I call up and I tell you my kid is being bullied, and I look at, I don't know if your school has it or not, but in Lexington too, they have like a form that you look at, and it says all the incidents that supposedly happened at the school, and for bullying they marked 0. For incidents of fights, they have it as 0. When kids are taking it, and,
that's impossible. Like, you just, on the surface, that's just not true.
And so people thinking they're sending their kid to like a safe area or a safe school. In this school district, this school is not in the safest of areas. Literally, my daughter's school that she went to had a bar in the back, like literally not even like maybe 800 feet. There's a bar.
Like an alcohol serving institute. Oh, no kidding.
No, and then the main road, you have hotels and motels, and you see people walking up there. And then you have these little private areas that some kid could just be taken right there. I mean, there's no safety. And the music teacher's frustrated because he went to the same school and he's trying to teach, and there's holes in the ceiling still there from when he was there. So, all these things. So, all these different issues. And I mean, we're trying to attack one thing, but I'm just kind of got sidetracked.
No, please.
But, so Sumter, I know very little about. I know a couple things from people, but I know it doesn't have a lot of opportunities for kids. So
that's right.
Yeah. So my thing is, what about the schools or some of the money, being allocated? Could there be something maybe made for the kids to keep them out of the trouble that they've maybe had, like
Right.
some sort of program? Back home, we had a lot of boys and girls clubs and stuff like
Sure.
that. Or what about even, do you guys even have a trade school?
There we have partnerships with some of the local colleges. We have
Yeah,
several good colleges here in town, satellite branches, if you will. I'm not sure exactly what to call them, but satellite. Sumter. We have USC Sumter here, Coastal Carolinas here, and a few others.
mhm,
Morris College, the beloved Morris College, as folks refer to it. And I say that because I'm not from around here. I'm from Ohio, so
right,
I'm as much as kind of a consumer and observer of the local culture and Southern culture as anyone else. And I think observing it, not being from here actually kind of gives me a perspective where I don't bring any baggage, right?
right.
So anyway, but I digress. To answer kind of the questions, I'll say this, and I always try to, look at the 30,000-foot view of what, again, come back to the design, the responsibilities of the school. And I've been telling people on the campaign trail, and I truly believe this, and it's unfortunate, but we can't save everybody,
Right. No,
and
that
and
is
we
true.
can't fix the home,
Hmm.
right? I think only God can do that through us.
Yeah.
And so, you got to look at, there's a very fine line between at what point does parents, or I'm sorry, what point does the institution, public schools become a pseudo parent, right?
Right. And
And
we don't
so,
want that either.
right. And so, because it's
Mhm.
like, it's like sometimes you better be careful what you wish for, because
Right.
believe me, you want to give the government more power over your children to raise them right. I
Right.
mean, is that something we want to do? Maybe
No.
in some, right?
In
And
some
I guess some
situations,
cases,
maybe, yeah.
depending on who it is, but in a general kind of bureaucratic sense, uh, I don't want schools or media or anybody raising my child. I want to raise my child. That being said, though, not all parents are built the same. Not all parents are equipped. Some parents are still living in that cycle of dysfunction that they
Mhm.
were birthed into, and unfortunately, um, a lot of these kids are going to, unfortunately, be exposed to that and may not know everything. And they're unfortunately the ones that populate the prison systems. They're the ones that that utilize and this is real life stuff. The EMS
Right.
services, because they're overdosing on drugs. The ones that utilize predominantly use our welfare entitlements because they're having children out of wedlock, right?
Mhm.
Well, not necessarily wedlock, but having children. What their children are having children,
Children, yeah.
and this isn't to cast stones. It's just to say you understand where the problem is, and the problem is there's a lot of cultural issue. And
Hmm.
so, I think there's several things that we can do, some big picture stuff, some local stuff. First and foremost, I am a school board member for public schools, the local public school system. However, I do believe, and I am very much believe in choice and competition, and I
Hmm.
think it's healthy. When you have the long arm of the tax code and the tax the tax system to prop up anything, it creates kind of a false price point, if you will.
Hmm.
And I mean, what I'm saying is if public schools don't have to compete for the minds and the dollars because of the product and the value
Right.
they're giving back to the community,
They're not going to care.
then we're stuck. And the problem is
Right.
that the children are the ones that are going to least benefit from it, right?
Hmm.
And so I guess that's kind of the perspective. But what can we do is and this is my and I may sound naive, but I don't believe that I am, and I believe there's a real kind of a palpable sense about it. And I think the communities and the at large and the sub communities within Sumter, that includes the business community, the Black community, the white community, the upper class, middle class, lower class. Everybody is going to feel the consequences of a good system or a
Right.
bad system.
Hmm.
And 20 years from now, are we going to have? And here's the questions that you got to ask yourself. In 20 years from now, are we going to have a school system and a body of citizens that went through public school that can't read a tape measure,
Right.
that can't critically think, right, that are dependent on the system, they got to eat. Like I said yesterday,
Right.
people are going to eat, whether they're breaking into your car or they're going to a $75,000 a year job. They're going to find a way to meet the needs that they have. And so what we got to do is in my opinion, get a lot of the bureaucracy out of the way, create pathways, right? I'm a man. I don't know if you knew that. I don't claim to be anything else, but I'll tell you this. When I was a young boy, me sitting in the classroom all day learning about things that just didn't matter to me was a problem. And then when I wanted to get up and go work or go run or whatever it was, because, there's a lot of energy that young men tend to deal with. If you don't focus that energy, they're going to find a way.
Right.
And oftentimes they find that's very, very detrimental things to do. That life altering, life changing things because they just don't have the guidance. They have an abundance of energy, no direction, whatever it is. And so what we got to do is we got to connect. And here's the answer. Well, here's a possible answer. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but one of the solutions is to go into those impoverished communities, right? People that don't look like me, but standing beside me, because we agree that we understand what the problems persist, to go in these communities and mentor them. And that's why you'll see me a lot more on Facebook. My goal, and I've been so blessed to have the financial stability to do this. My goal is I want to go into every single school in this district. I want to help out the teacher. I want to go and watch teachers. I want to go help the custodial staff. I want to help them do dishes. Right? I want to sit in the principal's office because I got to see what they're doing, and they got to see me. And I think we do this. We build the trust. We go into those communities because there is a real powerful groundswell of, I guess, activism. And I'm not to use that as a pejorative, but activists, cultural leaders, business leaders. First off, we got to break up the us versus them syndrome that we
got to build trust.
Correct. And we got to break up the us versus them from private schools, public schools, rich people, poor people, black, white, whatever it is. We got to look at what we can agree on, be really clear-eyed and deliberate and sober in what our assessment is, and then formulate a process and solutions to go after them. And so I think we do that. We have a business community that wants to come in. We have religious leaders that want to, that come in. But there's this huge wall, metaphorical wall between the public school system and largely through state law.
Right.
And so we have to kind of metaphorically tear that wall down and say, you know what? This school's only existence is to provide an education for these children so they can provide a value to their community. And if we can't do that, we got to change it. So I think we got to open up pathways of tech. I think tech, we know that med tech, we know that we know what the really strong industries with strong economic outlooks are. And I think, STEAM, STEM, all the variations of it, those sorts of things. Liberal arts and humanities is important. It's a sign of a decadent society. However, that's fine. But if Jimmy down the street is being beaten and abused and can't eat or has no food in his house, the humanities mean nothing to him. How can we lift him out and allow him and her and whomever are in those situations? And I think some of it, we got to empower teachers. We got to outfit our teachers with, the ability to see neglect and see abuse, that sort of thing. We need to take a lot of their stuff off their plate because they are the eyes and ears in the classroom every day. And we got to take some of the bureaucratic kind of, ancillary things off their plate that just don't matter. The recurring training, things like that. Some of them absolutely have to happen. Active shooter, for example. Active shooter training has to happen. We live, unfortunately, in a climate where we have essentially a broken home. And this is general, a broken home with young men, predominantly young men, on antipsychotic drugs and antipsychotic drugs with no way to vent and no leadership really that understands leadership and fatherhood and everything else. And then we're putting them in a school where they're bullied. Like I'm not condoning this behavior whatsoever.
Right.
But you can kind of see the powder keg of insanity in just in that, and it's persisting and it's growing. And so anyway, that was a long way to say we don't have all the answers,
Right.
but we can certainly advocate for like radical change. And it has to start with the very spirit of the relationship between the board members themselves, the board in the district, the community and the board in the district. And so we do that by being seen and hearing and actually listening to people. So I hope I probably didn't answer your question.
No,
but,
no, you
right.
did. You did. It's just, I think that, we, as a parent, we need to get more involved. A lot of parents, do that. But like you were talking about, I think a lot of the things, I mean, I'm not a man, as you can see. But I see it trickling down. First, we took God out of the schools. Okay. And we've got all these crazy things, and we've sat back. I mean, I'm a Christian, and I've sat back and I've seen other people sit back and say, oh, well, we're trying to be respectful of what other people believe and this and that. And it just seems you can see the changes coming in the less values and other values pushed and this one and that one and, that kind of thing. But what I want to say is what I see is a lot of jealousy with some of these students and their behavior and why they're bullies. And I honestly believe that, like we were talking about, is being a parent is one thing and being involved, but a lot of these kids have one parent homes that their mom is doing it all.
That's correct. That's right.
And then they're being spread too thin. I mean, some have 2-3 jobs. They're doing whatever they have to do to make ends meet.
Heartbreaking.
So they're not involved in the child's curriculum. They don't see what's going on, and they're trusting that the school is doing what they should for them.
That's right.
But you as a parent, what do you feel your role as being a parent has been for your relationship with your daughter, the school? What's a parent's role? What's a father's role? What do you think that could help?
Well, I think, I think that your question is, I think that more people just need to ask that very question, right? And maybe just if we spend 5 minutes thinking about it, we might come up with some very profound understanding of where the brokenness is in our society, our homes, our families, our communities. Is so you mentioned. So I always say this: is we kick God out, or the Father out of the home in our institutions, and then we kick the fathers out of the home. And because I do truly believe that men and women, masculinity and femininity together, that non-toxic, healthy masculinity and healthy femininity balances out a child, both boys and girls. And that's not to say men and women. 2 lesbian women could do it, 2 gay men could do it, right? But there has to be I believe there can't be a overpowering sense of femininity or feminist perspective, or an overpowering sense of masculinity. There has to be,
it has to be a balance.
Correct. And I think that that's where, we look at society, and the schools are certainly one of them. And this isn't to disparage anybody or any gender or any race or anything else, because fatherlessness, although it may affect one community over another more, it still affects every community, right? If
Just
you look
like
at
poverty.
the statistics, that's correct, exactly. And so, unfortunately, here in the South, where it's and I don't even like using the term minority because it implies less than, but I'm just talking about minority in as far as a number, a statistical demographic. Unfortunately, the African American home has been largely broken by this institution. Right? They kicked the father out. They, and I'm telling you, my libertarian feelers are about to go off here. I'll keep it at bay. But part of the problem is that, Rahm Emanuel says, never let a good crisis go to waste, right?
Right.
And so and that's true. That's politics 101. And so, if you look at, the history of and kind of migratory, and it happens in the white community as well, but then within the Black community is, all these promises have been made to these communities, especially with the Black community post Reconstruction. era, a sense of hope and, a hand up, not a hand out kind of thing. And the problem is this, as our government has really institutionalized and codified fatherless homes.
Right.
Look at our welfare system now. Like, it literally rewards fatherlessness.
Right.
And that's not to say, because here's the thing, again, when you look at it, who is the ultimate, who bears the weight of the consequences of that problem? That is the child. Yes, the communities, but that is the child, right? And so I think what we got to do is, again, I think it's open up those pathways to say, you know what, right? Being an American is a huge privilege. We are one of the wealthiest, and I say this kind of with a grain of salt, because how can you be wealthy and still maintain $31 trillion in debt, right? But I digress. Most of our poor are overweight. I mean, you go to any third world nation or other country nation, whatever they call them, the PC version is now. You go anywhere there and you look at their poverty, they don't have food. They're extremely malnourished. They don't have shoes. They live in, a lot of them live in shanties that, a fire would take out 50 people because they just don't have, they don't have modern medicine. It's horrible. And so that being said, is what we've done as a society and as a very decadent culture is we've taken what I believe as to be one of the most foundational elements and principles of being an American, and that's being an individual and having make your own choices and live your own life the way you want to live it. Although that has been kept, there's been populations throughout our history that has been kept from the promises of the Constitution, right? There also comes with that promise and with that citizenship and with that freedom and liberty responsibilities. And you can't be a dependent on anything and still be free. It's just not the nature of man.
And they don't make it easy.
Correct. In fact, they do the opposite. They want, our government, state, and I'm very heartened by seeing this in the State House. You're seeing this kind of firebrand level of patriotic, freedom-loving people. That scares, excuse my language, the heck out. I'll keep it clean. That scares the heck out of a lot of people who are comfortable and feel safe that the system's going to protect them, right? But the thing is, we need actually to be protected from the most dangerous entity in the world, in my life and in yours, is our government. And
I need to pause on that moment.
Oh, sure, yes.
And we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
All right, yes.
Our other advertiser for tonight is Done Property Service. If you mention this ad, you'll receive a special discount. Please call 803-560-2259 and let them know that you heard this ad on Declassified to get that evaluation. They offer free evaluations, and that's for property and lawn packages. They do anywhere from clean outs to move outs to cleans of moving in and cutting lawn and all kinds of odds and ends. And they are very reasonable in price too. We've used them ourselves, and I just want to let you know that they're a great company. If you have any further questions, there will be a link provided and a phone number at the end of this video. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to Declassified, as we are here with Jeffrey Zell, and he's in an explanation of my last question. So if you could please continue, I appreciate that.
Sure. Where did I leave off? What was the question?
A question basically about a fatherless home and the stuff that goes on. Is it detrimental?
Sure. Well, one of the things, and I tell people this, and I believe it, and I can tell you from my own experience, is though, one, we can't fix the home.
Right.
God can do that. The family has to do that themselves. Unfortunately, the community has to do that. I don't think that the schools are equipped to do that.
Correct.
And I don't think it's their design to do that. So, I'll say one thing. You mentioned earlier, you made a point about, about bullying and about, I can't remember exactly how you said it, but basically how schools kind of allow this sense of lack of discipline, violence, this sense of, right? You think about, like, I'm going to say this one thing. Think about this. Our children are being put and locked into these public schools
Right.
extremely anxiety producing, high threat, even if the threats aren't real, the perceived threat is true and real. And so I hate saying it, we're putting our kids in some districts, in some situations, a lot of them, we're putting them through hell is what we're doing.
Right.
We're sending them in a place where they don't feel safe.
My daughter has anxiety that she never had before. And it
Correct.
started basically with the staff and that kind of bullying. And
That's
I'm
right.
sorry, people got to understand the staff can be just as big as bullies.
That's correct.
As kids.
That's right.
And, so, I mean, I noticed it more when we came into the COVID era, let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
The lower grades wasn't so bad, but when you don't fit in this little box is basically when I'm starting to see more things. And when you're different, and I don't mean different in a bad way, but everybody learns differently.
Everybody. That's right.
So what I'm asking too is with Sumter, because I can't speak for Sumter. Like I said, I can only speak for where my children have been, which is Lexington 1, Lexington 2 area. So part of it is validating what they go through. And again, back with that little checklist that I looked through, they're saying that there's no bullying. There's been they broke it down to like hate crimes, violence with a weapon, things of that nature. Well, I was sitting in the office, and the next office, they were watching a video that was put up on Facebook or Instagram of kids jumping on one kid and beating the crap out of them. So now I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Have you heard about Fight Club?
Well, I know the movie, but
well, there's an issue right now going on in Lexington 1, 2, in certain schools. And this is going to blow your mind. This is why I ask if this is stuff if you've heard or if you're aware of it, the Sumter schools. So what's going on basically is kids are challenging other kids to fights, and they're happening in the bathrooms, empty classrooms, things like that. And someone's taping them and putting it on a website, and you can watch these. And as soon as it gets taken down, it's up somewhere else again. So not just, and these are 2 consenting kids usually that do this. Some teachers are aware of it, and I've heard things that maybe some teachers are involved as far as abetting of what's going on with it. But also there is kids planning to jump other children without the children not knowing, and several of them beating them and then putting them on a website. So, I mean, it's very scary. And kids, as you know, they don't need a reason to bully you. They don't, I mean, you could come from a perfect, you could have perfect teeth, a perfect home, a perfect head, whatever it is, you can have something else, but they'll find something and they could bully you for that because you're different than So I guess my question is, what as a parent, but also as in the school district, what is the relationship that you think you could have with a parent to make them feel more secure sending their kids? Because a lot of kids here, a lot of parents here are not being heard. The issue is being said.
Right.
They maybe sometimes make it to the school district, and sometimes they hear from somebody, but then nothing after. That's it. It's like they never said nothing.
Right.
And so a lot of the money that goes into the school districts are going to be taken away because a lot of these parents are taking their kids out. They're putting them in private school or homeschooling them.
Right.
What do you think we could do to have the parents feel their kids are safe and keep them in public schools?
Okay. Well, so there's a couple items in there I'd like to unpack a little bit. Okay. One of which I think you make a very good point when you said, there's you talk about a tax burden or the parent, the school saving or losing money, but I actually think about this for a second, and this is a different way of thinking. And I've thought about this because my daughter is in private school. And so I have a very valid reason for that, right? And my only child is in private school, and I'm a public school board member. That being said, if you ever want to know believe me, when I tell you the answer, you'll say, yeah, perfectly justifiable. That being said, I would challenge you to think about it like this. if a school, because compulsory taxation still exists for that child. Dawn, you pay a tuition for your public school entity in your locale, whether you like it or not, whether your kid's using it, whether your kid's in private school, homeschool, whatever, you're still paying for that. So when you take your child out, put them in private school, now you're paying for two tuitions, right? Yeah. And so if you think about it like this, I wouldn't doubt that some, and I'm not impugning any individual, I don't know this, but it's like having a gym. If you have a bunch of people, if you have a lot of people showing up to your gym with memberships and they're all using the same machines, your machine is going to break, you got to keep the air on more, costs that are associated with it. But if they have memberships and they never cancel them and they stop coming to your gym, isn't that a win-win?
Right, exactly.
Right. And so I think in this way with the public schools, it's actually more beneficial to them as far as just a bottom line standpoint and perspective of, if we don't have that child in a class, it takes pressure off the system of too large a classrooms, of security, of administration, of cafeteria demands and requirements, and food demands and requirements, of even down to the cost of water and electricity, right? When that child is not going to class because they're in some other situation, some other program or whatever, or some other school, but yet the child the family is still paying for that tax burden, that compulsory tax burden. That's a win-win for the public school, or public schools, if you think about it.
Right.
So it takes off some of the pressure of those issues that we see. And and then that's the first thing. The second thing is I want to address is I have no ill will or no heartburn for why people take their children out of public schools, right? Because it's their decision, and that's where it's their decision. And that's where as a someone who believes in your rights and your abilities and your ability to live your own life and make your own choices, it's not my business to determine why or why isn't. Now, as a board member, I'm very interested in why you did that, because I need to know, what is the problem? What's the drive? What's the motivation? Can we help stop the hemorrhaging of losing children from public schools to private schools, right? And I'll tell you just a couple of statistics. There are, there's over 20 public schools in Sumter District. It's a around 15,000 student population. There are, from COVID, I'll tell you two statistics, and ultimately it's going to tell you my answer. My answer is, you should have choice. You should have a choice, Dawn, whether you want to take your child and teach them traditionally in your own home as a homeschool child, or if you want to put them in a parochial school or a private school or a technical school or whatever it is, whatever you decide to do, it's going to, take pressure off the public system. And I'm of the mind where I think those dollars should follow your child.
That's
and I know that I have friends on both sides of this that say, that they're, and I'm not trying to dismiss their argument. But what I'm saying is, some of them will say, homeschool advocates, which I am. They say, well, if the dollars follow the child, then that means the bureaucracy and the regulation is going to follow too, and it's probably true to some degree. I'm not denying that fact. But name an institution the government doesn't want to own, right, and distribute equitably, right, kind of thing. That being said, and then the others, you have public school advocates that dang near they don't want no other option, right? And then you have private school people who say, I will never send my child back to another public school because it's dangerous, or what, the anxiety, or whatever it is, right? And so, you have this us versus them kind of thing. But the thing is, I say to all these people is, what are we gaining by just maintaining status quo, right? And so what I'm happy about, and I'm probably going to get some people that would otherwise text me or message me, would probably going to stop, and I'm fine with that. What I'm thankful for is that we have someone now at the Department of Education who values your choice.
That's
And
right.
someone, in a growing body in the State House that values your choice and my choice as a parent, right? And if we do that, we get enough people, we get enough people to agree that, my rights stop where yours start and vice versa. And that includes my dollars. And this whole mantra of public dollars there's no such thing as public dollars.
Right.
The government doesn't produce anything. They only consume, and it's through compulsion. So that means that they are taking your money. Cool, fine. We got to have roads that don't blow out our tires. When I call the cops, I want them to show up in a reasonable amount of time. Right? We've got to pay for these public good items. Totally get it. But at the same time, if there's not an industry in the world that wouldn't benefit from healthy competition. The schools are no different. And so as a board member, am I advocating for school choice? No, I'm not. As a parent, yes. But as a board member, I'm trying to give the best value that we can of this public school to the consumer of it. And that is the residents and families of Sumter County. And I'm very fortunate and very thankful that this current board, the ones I've gotten to know and know already and are seeing, there's a sense of renewal almost. I can't speak for everybody, but there's a sense of togetherness already. I think that we're going to build on. Doesn't mean we're not going to fight it out in the public space of our ideas, but it means that we're coming at each other from a place of respect. And I'll invoke Dr. Wright's name here as well, our superintendent. There are a lot of people that feel, and I tell them, and maybe this is inappropriate, but I'm a father first. And I want to hear their voices, whether it be teachers, principals, my neighbors, Dr. Wright himself, right? There is a very strong level of optimism about what he's going to do in this school district. And I think that this very spirit of the administration, the structure of government, all this, it starts from that very spirit. And I think if we do that, we come from a place of respect, a place of consensus. And that doesn't mean that we're going to bend on our principles. It means that we can agree respectfully to disagree, and we're going to talk it out and find solutions. I think that's where, and we do that enough in the open. To answer the question about transparency, we do that in the open enough, and we're not doing like what the previous board at Richland 2 did, dang near fight on the school board meeting, kind of thing. We do that, and I think that we build back trust. We get people back on board. We get the community, and here's one thing I've seen, and I imagine it's probably around the Midlands, but I can't speak to it. I can only speak here. It's unfortunate, but a lot of people in my district, my area, they've shrugged off the public schools, right? There's this sense of malaise, to use a Jimmy Carter term. There's a sense of, well, we can't change it. We can't do anything about it. So we're just going to do whatever else we got to do. And that's private schools, private schools, homeschooling, whatever it is. And I'm begging them. And I think that I was able to make the case is to say, you're right. Choice would fix a lot of these problems. However, if we don't have choice, we got to work within the system that we have to make it as effective and valuable to the community that we can. And that's what I've made the case. And I think that, my voice on this board, I will be a very strong, without saying that others aren't bringing really strong and powerful experiences and strengths and traits to the board. Mine, I do believe, is going to be that you're going to get an honest assessment from, very clear-eyed, steely-eyed, and that it's not emotional, it's not personal, right? If the schools aren't doing what we need it to do, we got to change schools. And so I believe that's why 7 people of 9 were elected. And again, this isn't to impugn previous boards, but the community demands change, and this is what we owe it to them.
Start. Right.
That's right. And if we can't do it, if Jeff Zell can't do it, or anybody else can't do it, you got to tell me, voters of Area 8 and across the district, I need you to tell me what you're thinking, because if you let me go my own way, I'm going to. And
how can they contact you? I'm sorry to interrupt you. How can they contact you if they want to reach out to you about any issues that they might have.
Anything. Well, I walk around with cards, and everybody I see, I don't care if it's a janitor or principal or the doctor right himself, or neighbors and the mayor and everybody, they get a card. I'm Oprah when it comes to my business cards. Everyone gets one. Everybody gets one. Some of them get two for some reason, but anyway, so my cell phone number, and I'm not hiding it. Just please tell me who you are, so I don't think you're some weirdo. Right. All right, but my cell phone number is 803-607-0797. I will stop whatever I'm doing if I can and take an hour-long phone call if I can, because I owe it to you. My email is Jeff Zell 4 SumterSchools@gmail.com. That's Jeff Zell 4 SumterSchools@gmail.com. Text me, call me, Facebook, friend me. I have a Facebook page. It's Jeff Zell for Sumter Schools at Facebook. Easy to find. Okay. But anyway, there's a lot of ways to get a hold of me. But we need more of that. And so we need more of this, Dawn. We need more of these kind of conversations.
And that's why I basically started this is, you and I talked yesterday, but about building a bridge.
Yeah.
That was my thought with the parental groups that are out here, is that we're all fighting for the same thing, which is our children. We might not see it in the same light, but if we can have an educated conversation without calling names and doing anything, that's what my purpose was doing this, because there is a lot of groups out there and I'm listening to a lot of different groups. Just because you belong to one group doesn't mean you can't share what you feel, to try to do, because we keep losing sight that it's about the kids. That's what it's about.
That's right.
I just wanted to ask you actually 2 more questions, basically. About this is a 4-year term you've taken. So what do you see you doing in 4 years from here? Is there a certain position you'd like to hold, or what?
It's funny. It's funny you asked that. I got to be honest. Thank you, Dawn, for putting me on the spot. No, I'm kidding. And I mean this, like technically I'm an elected official, right? I took an oath and all, right. By but technicality, but first and foremost, I am very much a concerned parent who loves this country, who loves your kids, even if you may not value their education. I do. Right. And I spent the bulk of my good working years defending this country. And I'm not trying to make it all glamorous, and I'm not Tom Hanks in Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan, but the sense of patriotism and I say nationalism, I don't mean the pejoratives that the left and right want to throw at each other. I mean, I want a strong nation so I can hand that strong nation off to your kids and my kids, whether it be white, black, gay, straight, I don't care. Right. They're Americans, and I want to hand off a better country to them than one was handed off to me. And so that being said, I don't know where I go. All I know is this: when I pray, I might get a little choked up on this. I got to be honest. When I pray every single day, God, open these doors for me. If you need me to go, I'll walk through it despite my fears, despite my injuries, despite my anxiety, everything else. I will walk through it, and I'm going to walk through it faithfully. That's why I won. I got to be honest. That's why I won, because I won by 20 points against a guy I should have never won against. Household name. And he ran a very clean race for the most part. And so did I. And so it was very clear that I said, you know what? This is in your hands, Lord. I'm going to do what I feel you're telling me to do. And I'm going to do it with vigor, passion, and I'm going to extremely, as Jocko Willink says, I'm going to be the best dang version I can of myself, and I'm going to do it. So wherever that energy, wherever that network, wherever that that takes me, is I'll go. Whether it be I'm going to go clean the bathrooms in McDonald's or run for U.S. Senate, whatever it is. If God tells me walk through that door, Jeff, I'm walking through it. I'm walking it faithfully. And so I can't really answer the question because I don't know. All I know is I'm bringing that kind of energy on this board, and whether people like it or not, I tell people all this all the time, and it's a little scary because it's just who I am. I'm coming in hot. Right. And I'm coming in hot, and I don't mean to say I'm coming in to break things. And I'm not saying I'm coming into it's Jeff Zell gets what he wants day. No, that don't exist. I wish it did. but I'm saying I'm coming in with vigor, passion, love, respect, and I'm going to do the best dang thing I can for this board, for this community, for your kids and my kid, daughter, because they deserve it. So wherever that takes me, it takes me. I'm in his hands. I'm at his
and I'll tell you,
service.
he's put me on some paths that I never thought I'd be on, and we just don't know until we're traveling it, because we don't know how it's going to be used.
That's right. Well, think about this. 5 years ago, do you think Don Pierce would be talking to Jeff Zell on a Zoom call on a Sunday after church? Right? No. And that's why I'm saying, like, yes, we got free will and this, but I'm telling you, when you pray that prayer, and this was our message, and I've been praying it for a decade now. If you pray that prayer, whatever it is, God, whatever trials, whatever tribulations, whatever struggles that you've had me go through, and you've hardened my spine and tempered my steel, whatever it is you need me to do, I'm going to do it. He will answer you.
Right.
And a lot of ways, he puts people in your life to help.
Right. Lines them up.
And vice versa. He's putting Miss Dawn Pierce in my life to help me do that in some way. And so that's the bridges I'm talking about.
Right.
Right. I don't want to throw bombs. I want to hand, I said this the other day, yes, I can be a bomb thrower. I don't want to throw metaphorical bombs. I want to I want to throw planks of wood to you and them, and I want to build a bridge with you so you can walk across it. Sometimes I'll walk across it, but that doesn't mean we're gonna bend and break on our principles. But when we take this thing away from our faith and stop allowing the national media and the race hustlers and the gender hustlers and all these people to inflame our emotions, and we just talk to one another, it's like 70-80% of everything that you say is that we agree on or more. So that's what I'm saying is, but we've got to talk to each other and then build those bridges and then go after the problem so we can hand off a country to our kids that's worth having.
Right. And just, that's definitely it. And, like I said, we're building trust when we build the bridges that we're going to go somewhere together with that. And, trust is a hard thing once it's been broken, not that you've done it, but the school system itself has done,
exactly.
An unbelievable job that people, but I've seen since, like I said, since COVID time, parents are coming out, they're speaking.
They are, that's right.
And they're advocating for the kids like they never did before. I mean, I'm watching school board meetings and I'm cheering like I'm at a football team.
Definitely.
Football game is like I'm watching them get up. I'm like, glad they're doing what they're doing. So that just leads me to my last question: is when is your next school board meeting, and are parents showing up, and what are the issues that they're bringing?
Okay, well, our school board meeting, our next school board is tomorrow, actually. You can watch it online. We will go into executive session. Unfortunately, he can't, I understand. I say, so it's tomorrow. Some of the big issues that we're hearing, there are parents that are coming, but again, back to that point where I think a lot of folks have just shrugged off the public school system. Right. We're not getting a lot of, what you're seeing, like, when you go on Facebook or YouTube, whatever, and you see the big crazy meetings in Loudoun County and Virginia, things like that. That's not happening here, not even close. Right. And I mean, do I want that? I mean, not really. What I want is an effective meeting, to be honest. Right. And so, but I also, at the same time, equally, I want parents to be, and stakeholders within the community to be heard. And with the parents feeling like, that they're just, for so long, that trust has been broken, and that they, their kids, are better off in some other situation, some other school system type, whatever. There is a kind of a apathy that exists. Right. And so I don't know what it looks like long term. And what we are, and this is where I say, this will be our second meeting. And what I say is, I want teachers. I just had a long conversation the other day with a teacher. She's in charge of a pretty prominent post here, and so I talk to parents and I talk to business leaders, and I'm really trying to leverage my my growing influence, because
Mhm.
2 months ago, 3 months ago, nobody heard of me.
Right.
And and that's not to say I haven't been an activist for many, many years, because I have. It's almost like,
Right.
I'll say just this point of privilege here real quick. It's almost like Nickelback. One day you never heard of them. I know. I don't care what
You have to use Nickelback.
everybody loves Nickelback because no one wants to admit it, right? Come on, Anyway, so that being said, it's like, they've been grinding out for a decade,
Right.
building up their skills, their craft, their chemistry, all that. And then one day they got heard and they got played,
Mhm.
and then everybody knows who they are. And so for them, it was like, this is kind of a natural, kind of logical conclusion of their life's work, that sort of thing. And so for them, they're saying, what everybody else is saying, man, they came out of nowhere. They're thinking, we've been here a long time
Right.
grinding it
Right.
out. And so I'll say is, I've been here a long time grinding it out across the state of South Carolina. I got great friends that I've made throughout the state, and at the grassroots level, conservative grassroots movements and things like that,
Mhm.
that's helped propel me up here. And again, I think those things are providential. Those meeting those people, embracing them, earning their trust, and vice versa. It's been very providential to me, and it allows me and gives me strength, and kind of emboldens me to go do more. And so anyway, I know I'm not answering the question. I'll answer the question here.
That's okay.
So tomorrow is our board meeting. There's not a lot of public interaction at this point, and I think because, like I said, the public is largely just kind of shrugged off
Mhm.
but there are some, and there are some ladies, and there are a group that really do truly believe. Although I think the campaign, they went away, I wouldn't have gone, a little dirty, but I will tell you, I'm not going to impugn any of them. I'm just saying politics is ugly and can get emotional.
Right.
But that being said, is they show up to all the board meetings, and I think they really care. Now,
Right.
if we were to talk about national politics, are we going to agree? Probably not. But that doesn't mean we can't agree, or at least understand one another, that some of the problems that persist. Because I'm telling you, this community, there's a lot of haves and have-nots. Unfortunately, I'm
Right.
one of the haves. I've been blessed, with the ability to have financial security, things like that. But if you go into certain parts of this community that are predominantly Black and brown, there's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of generational, and I'm not even going to, there's a lot of generational dysfunction. And that, again, because I think a lot of ways, and it was systemic, and it was, codified racism and oppression and things like that. I don't think that. I know that happened, right? We have history books written on
Right.
that. But what I'm saying is I think there's still some lingering spiritual effects of that
Right.
have been passed down from grandma and grandpa to grandchild, things like that. There probably is, because human beings are fallible, and
Right.
there are racists in this country, in this county, in this city, for sure. I don't see it. I mean, I got to be honest. What I define as racism, I don't see it. Not in a real way. What I see is the lack of pathways to allow communities that has been marginalized in the past to move forward.
Right.
And that may, some of these people might hear this podcast and say, what is that guy talking about?
Right.
And agree with me, because
Right.
I don't look like I should be having this opinion, but I truly believe it. And
Right.
so and I've said this to you yesterday, I think, is, as I've traveled the world, I think ultimately, governments are bad and people are good, right? There's good Russians, there's good Ukrainians, there's good Brits.
Everybody wants to be, included. That's the bottom line.
Right.
Is everybody wants to be included. Nobody wants to be on the outs. And I think that, like I said, having the new members of the board and everything going on, people need to give it a try. They need to they need to start doing something. If they want the change, then they need to start trying. And I mean, if you have a website or something for the links for the I don't know if you also tape live or anything like that.
They stream it live on YouTube.
Okay.
And so if you just go to YouTube, and I usually post it on my Facebook page as well, my official Facebook page. And so before it happens, because I want people to be able to be a part of it, because transparency is absolutely crucial in this.
Right.
We're not hiding the ball. Like,
Right.
I'm not hiding the ball, right? We're going to have it out with some people, and that's just, we're going to have to break some eggs, unfortunately, to make the omelet. But we got to do it with decorum and respect, and I think we do that. We move this ball forward, and I am just so blessed and thankful to have had the opportunity to run. Elections are fun. I got to be honest; they're a lot of hard work, and I've proven to myself I might know what I'm doing a little bit, at least enough to be dangerous. And but now the real work has to get done.
Absolutely.
And so you've got to value that people don't look like you, that don't talk like you, that don't come from the same place. You got to value their opinion, whether you agree with it or not. You got to value it and understand it. Doesn't mean you got to accept it, but you have to hear them. You got to hear them.
And I want to thank you for being so candid with, some of the questions that we've asked and everything. And I just hope that I want to thank you for your service too. Before I forget, I wanted to say that. But I just wanted everybody to know, you can't judge a book by its cover, and that if they have any questions, that they can contact you. Absolutely. And I'm really thankful that you took the time out your day to meet with me. So this way we can kind of say who Jeff Zell is, and everybody can kind of go back and look, and if they have any questions, because I want good things for Sumter. I want good things for all schools. Likewise. And I think that you guys are on a good path. Well, thank you. And I pray for you, and I hope that we can meet again soon, maybe in a couple months, and see what the progression is. I would love to follow up and just see where we're from there. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure and honor. I see, however I can help get your word out, your message. Oh, definitely. Count me in, because it takes all of us to, good ideas come from everywhere. Absolutely. So and I'll be praying for you as well. With you and all that, once we get everything up and running, I'll be sharing it. It will be on Rumble, and there is a YouTube site. So I will send you that. Perfect. Cool. Thank you again. I appreciate you. Thank you. God bless you. Thanks for everything. Thank you. Same to you. All right. Bye.